Today on the Diz List, we count down the top 5 dark rides at Walt Disney World.
Welcome to the Diz List, the podcast that lists everything in Walt Disney World. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob, and today we count down the top 5 dark rides at Walt Disney World.
Dark rides are some of the one thing that I think people associate the most with Disney.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not, but as far as Disney parks.
It's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, actually.
Disney dark rides are Disney did it before anybody else.
Yes.
And those rides are so classic and so beloved that you literally have seen people chain themselves or maybe not literally, but protest the closing of, you one of your favorites,
Mr. Toad's Wild
Toad.
Ride.
Yep.
Yeah.
People were extremely upset
Save
about
Mr. Toad.
Pooh's Wild Acid Trip.
Yeah.
Replacing it. I'm sorry, whatever,
Well, the irony there is we did an episode at one point where we looked at the top grossing IPs of all time.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that
it was
Winnie
number
the
2.
Pooh, yeah. Winnie the Pooh, and it's all time, but obviously it's a huge thing, which Disney picked up because it was public domain, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's one of the many that they did that with. Yeah. Yep.
Couple of things to say about dark rides, and then we'll get to the point where we can kind of define what is and what isn't. So being an artist, art teacher, one of the things that my wife and I like to discuss when we think about dark rides is really what a lot of dark rides are. I don't know if people think about it this way or not, but I tend to from time to time. And as you think about when you go to a museum, you're walking around and all of the paintings or sculptures are there. This is a different way of looking at it, is those paintings and sculptures and audio animatronics are all there. Okay, Mary Blair, her style is all inside of Small World, right? But you are in a boat navigating through. So imagine taking the Museum of Modern Art in New York City and putting like a little tram or a trolley that goes around the paintings and turn the lights off and then put spotlights on. If you think about A and B, there's really not a ton of difference between the two.
I don't disagree at all. I think that dark rides are probably a good parallel is that you are basically going through and riding through a giant art installation.
Yeah, like a setup. Exactly right.
And for some of them it's performance art and some of them it's static.
Yep.
But, when you throw in audio animatronics, but there's plenty of tricks that the Imagineers have done to make you, whether it's perspective when you're on Peter Pan or maybe just the way the ride moves itself as opposed to actually having moving animatronics. Like the rain effects, which is just fishing line and lights.
Yeah.
I think that Disney does it best when it comes to dark rides.
Yes.
And they've shown that through the years they've evolved. I would love nothing more than somehow to pick up Shanghai Pirates and drop it into a park I can get to readily. But we should talk about what's not a dark ride as well.
Correct. And we were texting back and forth about kind of the rules because there's some that are hybrid. So the first one, I don't know if I mentioned this or you did, but we talked about Tiana. Mm-hmm. So Tiana is like a perfect blend of both, but we are not counting that one. Because,
I don't think you can.
No, I think we're focusing on the ones that are, if there is a thrill, for example, this may or may not be on the list, but these do count. Frozen would count. That's generally a dark ride with a drop.
Yeah, it's a small drop.
Pirates also kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Still counts as a dark ride. We had another one. Oh, I guess you could also consider another hybrid, which is way less of a dark ride, is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Because they have that middle part is sort of that, even though you're on a roller coaster.
Then you're...
I'm not saying it counts.
No,
I'm saying that has elements of it.
I get what you're saying, but then you'd almost have to count Big Thunder as a hybrid, and you'd have to start counting...
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, well, there's a slow, dark part in Guardians, and there's a slow, dark part in Tron. Just the beginning. But, the reality is that some of the dark rides are more thrilling than others, and then some of them are so thrilling they don't count as dark rides.
Yeah.
I almost want to think of it as like, what rides would you not take a child on?
Yeah.
And I think Rise is not a dark ride because of that. I think that Tiana's is not, because that is a scary drop for kids.
There's another podcast I was listening to this week that I probably shouldn't say the name of it, but
you listen to other podcasts besides ours?
It was another Disney podcast. It's a good one, and I talk about it a lot.
It better be some of our friends, like Rope Drop and Park Hop.
So there was, I love that podcast too. But this particular gentleman reads off information that he gets from surveys from other companies.
We can shout them out.
Sure.
Why not?
Well,
Disney Dish?
Yes.
We can shout them out. That's not a bad thing.
So Len Testa.
Unless you're about to totally bash them, in which case I have to go back and edit
No,
this.
I disagree, but I'm not bashing at all.
Okay.
I think the guy's fantastic.
Yeah.
So they were joking. Well, no, let me rewind a little bit. So they were going over a survey that Universal Studios put out. And they were defining names for rides. Thrill rides, what is a thrill ride, what isn't. And Len makes this joke. He says...
Bet you laughed hard at
it.
He
cracked up. He was laughing, and he was talking about thrill rides, and he makes a joke about imagination with Figment and starts cracking up. Ha ha, a thrill ride! Ha ha ha! And just starts cracking up, and I go... There's a part on that ride where the wind hits you so hard to scare you, it can blow your hat off.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know why his joke was that, like, oh, it's so tame. I mean, sure, it's kind of a goofy ride, and we have listeners that don't like that ride.
Are you saying that?
But if you're getting blasted with air and your hat's flying off, that's a lot different than using the example of, like, Small World. I would laugh and say Small World would be my joke one that, oh, that's a thrill ride. Ha ha ha. I probably wouldn't say imagination because of that.
I think that you might be a little bit overly critical on that one.
I am.
Because
do you know why?
Because you love Figment. Because you love imagination.
I do. I love the character and I love the original ride. This current ride is one that I enjoy doing, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good ride. But then again, like, there's a thrilling part. I don't agree with that statement.
That's fine. That's fine. We're going to get into...
You can cut me off. I know you're going to. Go ahead.
No,
But I'll go on and on about it. And
Yeah.
it's...
You're going on and on.
I know. But I love this stuff, and I'm passionate about it. And if you're still listening and you haven't turned it off, you're probably passionate about this stuff too. And that's why we love you.
So we're going to take a look at our favorites. And it's been a minute since we've done a list like this where I don't know yours.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know mine.
We're probably going to overlap a little bit, I bet, because I know at least a couple of these we have in common that I could see us overlapping on.
Overlap, but probably not match.
Maybe.
I mean,
we never know.
We'll see.
Okay. Want me to kick it off?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to kick off here. And my number 5 wasn't on my list at all. And had a list, had it done, went to look at it again today just to kind of say, oh, well, what's my list look like? And I went, you know what? I forgot. This is the ride that has probably, if not one of the best animatronics in all of Walt Disney World. And that is the Shaman in Navi River Journey.
Yeah, that's not on my list.
No, and I know you don't like that ride either. But we do as a family. We love it. I love the environment, but I also know, and I can call you out on this one. You've told me that it's grown on you a little bit.
Look, if the line is less than 30 minutes, sure.
If you have,
it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The art, the way it's been done.
I love it.
The colors. I just don't get the weight.
The music, I know, and maybe because it's beauty, and I don't know. I talk about this ride a lot. I don't need to really go on and on about it other than the vibe is incredible. The music is great. My children have made up lyrics to the English lyrics to the Shaman song, which I can't even remember. It has to do with like pizza or I don't know. It's very funny. They can recite it.
I think there's
some
lasagna in there too.
Probably. They have very funny lyrics to the song. And then seeing that shaman is just such a super cool experience. I will say, if I'm being a little critical with this ride though too, I think A, it's a little short. So that's why it isn't higher on the list. And B, You know, one thing I've never said this on the show, and I'm curious your opinion on this. There's one part in the ride where you kind of turn the corner and there's a projection of something it's a alien that looks similar to like a panther.
Yep.
I think it's a little cheesy. I feel like it looks too drastically different than the rest of the sort of tangible stuff. Whereas like the projection on the ceiling where it looks like the little, almost like a frog creature, but I know they're aliens, so it's not actually a frog, but those little creatures and the way that those leaves move is so just realistic, and it puts you in the mood, and then all of a sudden it looks like there's this screen with this animation of a panther.
Everything else looks like you could touch it.
Yeah, that one
doesn't.
bugs me. It's the only thing that besides the fact that the ride is a little short, but I love everything else about it. I wish it was a little longer, and I wish they had just an animatronic of it. I mean, create an animatronic of that particular, we'll just call it a panther for lack of a better term, right? So we'll call the alien panther, do an animatronic with just kind of, his face kind of looking back and forth. Not really a complex animatronic. I think it would be so much better. But again, it's number 5 on my list. I love it. I'm assuming that's not on your list.
It's not.
So you can talk about it a little bit since we're not going to come back to it later
Yeah,
on.
I mean, I think it's an okay dark ride. My issue is twofold. It is very short, and the long line to get in. If you
Fair.
hit this up at a time of day when it's 30 minutes, 25 minutes, which is possible,
And that's worth it.
then I think it's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not as good as so many other dark rides that are A, longer, and B, shorter waits, that I feel this one cannot rise to my list.
Yeah.
I do get why you put it there. It's an absolutely, aesthetically, it's a gorgeous ride.
And then I'm comparing it to other dark rides too. And the one that I did have on my list, or ones, they kind of moved around a little bit. I compare, okay, it has one of the best animatronics there is, period. And these other rides were kind of like, didn't really have anything on that scope. Maybe, I don't know, Little Mermaid, actually, the Ursula animatronic is pretty awesome too. So maybe I'll get to that one later, maybe not. So my number 5, Navi River Journey. What do you have?
My number 5 is Frozen.
Great.
Frozen Ever After. It may or may not be on your list. I don't know, but
I love it.
But what I would say is this: Frozen Ever After is a dark ride that, for me, is nostalgic because my first time going, it was a must-do.
Yep.
I don't remember the old ride, and so now I have. So this is the only memory I have.
I barely remember it. It's a long time ago.
The idea of the queue walking through that little, not the village, but you're kind of walking through the area where Anna and Elsa are, and you go through like the shop, and
Sets the tone so well.
It's very well done.
Yes.
Its biggest knock for me is how poorly the animatronics have aged.
Yeah.
So the
lit
facial,
up faces. Yeah.
the
I knew you
facial
were gonna say that.
projection is, it looks like somebody did a fake tan and only rubbed their face.
Yeah.
I mean,
The colors are off. Yeah.
and I feel like it's gotten worse over the years.
Yeah.
I would really love to see them announce, hey, we have the skins of the animatronics from overseas, the A1000 animatronics. We're bringing them here.
They're incredible. Too.
The drop isn't so big that it's going to terrify kids who are of the age that they love Frozen. I think that the I forget what his name is, but the snow monster there, the guardian, the ice monster, whatever you want to call him.
That's a great animatronic.
I think that's a great animatronic. I love Sven, and I love Olaf, and how they kind of play off of each other.
Yep.
And the tongue is stuck to the ice.
The tongue
and,
is great. Yeah.
I think it's really well done. It's a very cute ride.
Yep.
It is an odd ride to get wet on. And I know you got absolutely drenched the last
my
time.
shoe was soaked. Yeah.
But it's a fun ride. I like it for a lot of reasons that maybe aren't tangible to other people. But for me, it's number 5 all day long.
Great. It was on my list. That's the one that I bumped down.
Yeah,
it
makes sense. It's low. I mean, it's 5 for me for a reason.
The music. So if I'm comparing this ride to Navi, which was my number 5, and The reason Navi won out, was I said earlier, was the animatronic is, a little bit more superior than Anna and Elsa with the weird projection faces.
Yeah.
Musically, I think Frozen has the edge a little bit because of those songs, but the song in Navi River Journey is also excellent. Frozen is also really close because it has that drop, but I think with the environment and just how great that shaman is, I rose that one to number 5. But Frozen was the one that was bumped, and it's like, to me, if I'm being fair, it's like 5A and 5B. So I'm with you on that. So I'm glad that made your list.
Cool.
That way I get to talk about it a little bit more.
Let's hear your number 4, because this is where we're going to get exciting.
My number 4 I know is on your list.
Okay.
I'm positive.
All right.
And that is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
So I know it's somewhere on your list. I don't even need to read your face to know that it's one of your favorites. I know that. That's like you saying, well, I don't even want to get there because I don't want to give anything else away. But this ride for me is a very nostalgic one as well. And it's changed a little bit through the years. They've added in some of the characters from the movies. Hasn't bothered me that much. It's funny when they make these sort of slow changes, it doesn't really change too much in my head. It's like this slow burn where this is kind of what the ride is. And if I think back to try to remember, okay, what was this auction scene like before? It wasn't that much different. Or the what's his name? Davy Jones? Is that the octopus character?
Yeah.
I've seen those movies. I don't love them and watch them repeatedly. So let me take that back. I really enjoyed the movie, but I'm not a guy who's going to go back and rewatch much of anything. I'm not really a rewatcher guy. But my point is that wasn't originally him when that opened up in 1971. That was
right. I mean, you didn't have Johnny Depp. You didn't have.
So all those changes are just, they seem natural, and I've never really had any problem with it. The drop has been fun. I have so much positive thing to say, and I'm not going to go on and on too much more because I'm fairly certain that this is also going to be on your list. I love the smells. The wait is never really terrible for this, and I enjoy the wait at Magic Kingdom because a lot of it is inside and it's cooler. That's really, I don't have too much more to say about it. I mean, I can talk about the comparisons to Disneyland, but I want to talk about Disneyland a little bit at the very end and talk about the number of dark rides that both places have. So my number 4 is Pirates.
Yeah, one thing I would just add is that it is very different in every one of its iterations. It is not a copy and paste, which I think is pretty cool about Pirates. That they purposely made it not a copy and paste.
Right.
But I'm going to move on to my number 4 instead of expounding.
Wait, I want to say one more thing.
Okay.
I want to mention that the most recent video that our buddies at Ear Scouts put out had a really good point about the one in Tokyo. They said that one was a hybrid between the two. And please, we invite you to go and watch the video from Rob and Eric going to Tokyo and going to Disney there. And they really had some interesting insights, not only on this ride, but kind of everything that's different and unique at that park. So just a little plug for our buddies over at Ear Scouts. That's a great video. Have you gotten to watch it yet? I know you had a busy week.
I have not. My week's been crazy.
Yes, I'll vouch for Nick. He's had a wild week. He's coaching soccer right now, which is his busy season of the year. So and I know you'll get around to it. You watch all of them, so do I.
Oh, yeah, I don't miss them, but
you'll really enjoy it. It's fun. It's really cool to see all the different things that they did while they were there. So just a plug for those guys. Okay, your number 4.
My number 4, I'm also fairly certain is on your list. My number 4 used to not be on my list. This last trip, I felt like there were major improvements to this ride,
and
that is Haunted Mansion.
Yeah,
it was cleaner, and what I mean by that is like not the animations, but the lighting.
Brighter. Yeah, Disneyland, they did that too.
I don't know if they went through and painted the black lights reflective paint more. It was just much brighter in a very good way. Not like the lights are on, but like the stuff that you're supposed to see was much brighter.
There's a moment.
Hatbox was great.
Yes.
I like Hatbox. People who complain where it is, I understand they're saying, well,
semantics.
Exactly. I understand what they're saying, that we're not supposed to see any of the spirits ahead of time. But you know what,
man? I roll with that stuff.
I mean, you're already at the endless hallway,
and what can you do? I mean, I think about this all the time. These people get so upset about the changes. Some of these YouTubers get so mad, and like they're their tagline is ranting about X. And I'm like, what on earth is that going to do?
Yeah.
Like, this is done. Enjoy it. Like, we don't get to pick unless we, apply to be an Imagineer. But
Right.
Just enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is.
And I think it was a very well done animatronic.
Absolutely.
I really have enjoyed. So over the years, I've thought that it's a good ride, but like not great. And I know that you love this ride.
That's okay.
But I've always felt
I can't argue that because I know that, and that's what makes this podcast unique, is my sort of longevity from going to the park since probably late 70s, early 80s, and your recent. That's what makes this interesting, is that the fact that you're new to it and you're building this interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I love hearing that.
Well, and it's just that I feel like the first few years that I got to experience it, it was getting to a point where, for instance, there was one ride I went on that took us 15 minutes to get through because it stopped that often.
Yeah.
Right. We were stuck in the Madame Leota room for, we heard the entire loop twice.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah, it is. It's good and bad.
It's cool to take a minute and take it all in.
Because you can kind of look around. I agree.
Good and bad.
I just feel like they have done something this last trip. It was so much cleaner.
Yeah.
So much, like the colors popped so much more.
I agree with you.
I felt like the dining, like the party scene was way more visible.
I feel like you can see more that you don't really remember.
I was like, wait,
yeah.
Is that new?
Wait, somebody's shooting in the painting up there? What?
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, there was stuff that I was like, I don't remember seeing that before. And I remember turning to my son, because we wrote it together the first time. We wrote it twice. I turned to him and I was like, has that always been there? He's like, I honestly don't know, but that's the first time I've noticed it. So for me, something that was not on my list the last time we thought about talking about this and is raised to this level, which is why I think these lists are so revisitable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is because Disney fixes things, changes things, and it's ever evolving. So for me, and your opinion's ever evolving. So for me, number 4 is Haunted Mansion.
I'll finish by saying that just a tip for not only you but all of our listeners. One thing that I noticed when I was at Disneyland, and then again when I got back to and visited the one in Orlando again, when you are turning backwards and going down into like the graveyard, the outdoor area.
Yes.
We noticed that at both parks now, first time was in Disneyland, how bright it was off to the right.
Yes.
Because that used to be just pitch black. And I would look every time. I would look over to my right.
You can see the siding of the house.
You can. And you can see almost further back. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. So next time you start to turn around, pay attention to how much brighter everything is in that room as well, it's kind of interesting because obviously you want it really dark. How do you balance having something bright and also dark and spooky all at the same time? And I think they found it. And I'm not sure what that special sauce was, whether it's neon lighting or what they chose to do, but they know what they're doing. And it's definitely cool. I don't feel like it's bright to the point where it's like, okay,
it doesn't take away from it.
Turn these off. Like it wasn't too much.
No. I think some of it is because they repainted or did whatever they did for the blacklight reflective paint, that adds enough ambient light that now you can see those things. Yes. That's my feeling. Yeah. I could be wrong.
Sure.
So you want to head off to the halftime show?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's do the halftime show now, and then we'll go back to our top 3 and kind of see where we match up. So I'm going to guess probably we're probably going to repeat a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I'm wondering kind of how these other 2 are going to fall. I'm curious.
Yeah. We're going to head off to the halftime show, which is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com. If you don't know what that is, you go to patreon.com/DizListPod. You can get early access to new episodes as well as bonus content each week. Our patrons are like our Dizlist family. We know many of them by first name. They contact us all the time. It's a lot of fun. And you can join patreon.com without a paid subscription and still get some of the perks, like added to our close friends list over on Instagram, so that when we're on trips we can post some fun stuff that's kind of exclusive content. But
we are totally listener funded, so your help really makes it happen for us every day.
Yes,
so,
it definitely does.
Every week, not every day.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, every day.
Can you imagine recording every day?
Well, I'd love it.
I mean, yeah.
If I
we'd have a lot of content.
If I had time, I would love it, actually.
But we thank you for watching, and this is the halftime show brought to you by our patrons. Welcome back. In this second half of the show, we're going to talk about our top 3 dark rides at Walt Disney World. I have a feeling that we're going to have some repeats.
That's okay. Plenty to say about all these.
Yes, I agree. I also have a feeling that we're going to not match up in our tops. But I could be wrong.
No, we will not.
Okay.
I'm positive we will not.
Okay, then I know what your top is now. But,
well,
okay.
I think listeners know probably what my top is, and that's okay.
I bet we match close. I bet we match on number 3.
Okay, let's find out here.
Go ahead.
Number 3 for me is a dark ride that it's a dark ride, but it's not really a dark ride. The previous version of this ride I loved, and I don't think you got to do the previous version of this ride. Do you know what I'm hinting at here?
I think I do.
Okay, I'll get right to it. My number 3 is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Is that also your number 3?
That is also my number 3.
Okay, then we can jump in together. So I'll start with kind of the history of this. This ride used to be called the Great Movie Ride, and it's in Hollywood Studios if you're unfamiliar with this particular ride, and it took you through you have a actual human tour guide that is on. I say human because some other rides like Rise of the Resistance, you have kind of a droid that's on the front, so that's why I need to be specific. Or Goofy for the ride we're about to transition into.
I do think
there's a person who's kind of taking you through the movies. Wizard of Oz, Alien was one of my favorite ones that they do. But your tour guide becomes part of the show, and there turns into like a shootout. I don't know if anyone has seen this. You can actually go on and watch it on YouTube. It's pretty cool if you watch this ride through. But I loved that one too. I would also consider that one a dark ride. So anyway, honorable mention goes to its precursor. But the newer version I still like. And there's, again, people who don't like change and they love the original and are not okay with the new version. But Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is so much fun. It's like being inside a cartoon. I'll let you pick up from there because I know you have a lot to say about this too. Let's tag team it.
I love this ride. Yeah. I think it's, like you said, very well done.
Yeah.
My favorite scene in the entire thing is the dancing scene, which I know is ridiculous, but everybody gets to have a blast and just dance with each other.
It's goofy. It's funny.
I love that you never really know what you're going to get because you don't know what car you're in. And depending on the car or the trackless ride system, you end up in different scenarios. There are plenty of nods to the Great Movie Ride with the tornado in the one room.
Yep.
I really do feel like Goofy is supposed to be like a nod to the human who was kind of your tour guide before.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of like talking at the end.
Yeah.
I love that particular artwork for
style.
Mickey. That style is, I wish that was in public domain because I love that style. I think it's amazing. It's a throwback. My kids, like, before we ever even went to Disney, my kids fell in love with the Mickey shorts.
Yeah.
That is.
My kids love it too.
What's the name of the artist? I can't remember.
Gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, go ahead and look it up. Yeah. But they love those shorts and like Potato Land and like all that stuff. Those shorts reinvigorated. It breathed a whole new life into Mickey Mouse that had been missing for I dare say decades. Because the only thing that my kids knew Mickey Mouse from at that point in their life was from the Christmas Carol, and that's about it. That's because where else did they see Mickey? Oh, well, yeah,
I guess it depends.
Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. But for me, they didn't know Mickey, right? And I knew. Think back to when the last time Mickey Mouse really changed, because really that's what happened. This animation style changed what we think of as Mickey. And I mean, let's be honest. Disney's not stupid. They did that for a reason. Mm-hmm. Because now their IP starts anew when they made those shorts as far as that type of Mickey. Just like Steamboat Willie was now public domain, then the next one's going to be, and so on and so forth. But I love it. What's the artist?
Here's the clue: Ant-Man.
That's not going to help me.
Paul Rudd, but it's Paul Ruddish.
Oh,
That's how I
okay.
remember it.
All
At
right,
one
Paul
point, I
Ruddish.
remembered. Oh, it's kind of like Ant-Man.
Okay.
Paul Ruddish. Anyway.
Okay.
Very cool animator. The writing is fantastic. The animation style. But
I know that's not the dark ride,
No,
but
and I
still,
know.
but that's part of it.
But back to the ride, though. One of my negatives that's a positive, I'll explain, is that I go through so fast I don't get to see everything. So it's very re-rideable.
Very much.
Okay. So it's a negative, but it's a positive because it makes me want to go back and see more, because every time I'm like, oh, I don't remember that from last time. And I'm trying to look a different direction and see some different things. So many Disney rides are like that. Do I wish it were slower? I don't think so. I think the speed is just right. Term I use in class is Goldilocks. I'll say that all the time.
Yeah.
It's not too fast. It's not too slow. So I think it's just right. But I like to be able to rewrite it, and always get something new out of it. And the music, the music too, is that gets stuck in your head, and then you're whistling that. Nothing can stop us now. I sing it like all day long. It's going through my head all the time.
So there's two things I want to mention, specifically because you reminded me of the re-rideability. In the scene with the tornado, the first time you ride it, you're busy looking at the tornado. The next time you ride it, you might look at some of the buildings, some of the other stuff. The third and fourth time, you might start looking behind you, not even where you're supposed to be looking.
What's on the right side instead of the left,
And so it is very re-rideable. Then as far as the sound goes, I want to throw in, too, the engineers who figured out how to make the sound do what it does in there.
It's
because
cool.
you enter that final room and you're hearing one thing, and on the exit side, you hear another thing, but there's still people on the other side while you're hearing something completely different. Yeah. So the audio engineers, or the engineers, I should say, not the audio engineers, because that would be somebody who's mastering the studio, but the engineers who built the speakers. Sound
designers.
Right, the sound designers who built the stage and built the speakers, so they're so unidirectional. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal. I know that's a little bit of a geeky look at it, but still, but it's cool. This ride is it. Yeah. You know why it doesn't rise higher for me?
How come?
And I think you'll agree. I think if my experience with this ride was Disneyland, this might be significantly higher. The queue here and the building it's in makes zero sense.
Yeah, you're right.
It was shoehorned in.
Well,
it makes
does, but it
zero sense.
I think the only sense for me that it makes is that it's a famous theater in Hollywood, and that famous theater is playing the Mickey short. But I agree with you, though, in the fact that in Disneyland, it's back in Toontown, and that fits perfectly.
You're telling me they could not get rid of that stupid-looking tent filled with snacks in the back of Storytime or whatever.
Storybook
Circus. There we go.
Yeah.
And turn that into Toontown.
They could.
And put this in there. They knew, they had to know they were doing something soon with Magic Kingdom. Mm-hmm. They shoehorned that in. And that's my biggest gripe about this ride. And I'll stop there because I don't want to. I know we're going to run long if I keep going about it, but that's why it doesn't raise higher on my list.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess that we also match up on 2, but not on 1.
I disagree.
Really?
We do not match on 2.
Okay.
But your number 2 is my number 1.
Oh, now I figured it all out. I think listeners may have also.
Go ahead.
My number 2 is Remy.
It's a great ride.
Yes, I know. It's a great ride.
Go ahead.
You and I experienced this ride together for the first time. It's a very funny experience.
The only ride I think, that you and I both experienced there's 2 rides we experienced for the first time together. This and Guardians. Very different rides. Yeah, we both experienced Guardians together for the first time.
Did I? I thought I did it before you.
No, it was the same day.
Okay,
we did it the same day because remember we said we were glad we did it in that order.
We did that in that order.
Yeah.
That's right.
I remember. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, there's a hilarious picture that we have to find and post at some point.
Oh, we look like little kids.
We do. We have the glasses on, and we have the biggest smiles on our faces. We're 40-something burly, bearded, bald dudes, and there's just this picture of us with these little smiles on our faces. So we have to find that picture at some point.
Yeah.
But this ride is great for so many reasons. Just just the immersion alone makes it just such a fantastic ride. And a lot of times when you think you're going to get a copy-paste ride from another park, it's like, oh, that's kind of a cop-out. Well, not if it's an awesome ride. It's easier. You're going to get it faster. And if it's proven in another park and it's a great IP that people like, bring it over here.
It fits. And if it fits.
It fits, you know? The French Pavilion, come on, it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I don't
Okay.
feel like talking about it.
Okay. Then why don't you talk about your number 2?
My number 2, the reason I knew that there was no way we could match up
Is
because my number 2 is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay, which I know is obviously one of your favorites.
The smells you did not talk about.
You're right.
I
Not
love
only the bromine, the musket, the fire.
everything about this ride just screams classic Disney.
Yeah.
So I hadn't been to Disney. For those of you who don't know, so maybe you're new to this show because of YouTube. Maybe you're a new listener because of some other reason. My very first trip was in 2019. The famous story was that I told Rob, going once only,
I laughed.
and he was right.
I said, you're going back. You're like, no, we want to do this. We want to do that. We have, my wife and I have this plan. And I'm like, you're funny. You're going to go back every year.
Yeah. And he was right.
Yeah.
Admittedly. So in 2019, I go and I have this image, this notion of what Disney is. And I have this notion of what Disney dark rides are. And Pirates of the Caribbean was literally that notion, but plussed to the max.
Yeah.
Because I knew what it would look like. I knew how it would feel. I did not get the immersion you would get from just small things like smells. Things like, just the noises, the sounds, the water splashing from behind you when the cannonball explodes in the water behind you instead of in front, like where you're looking.
And it's always random. And sometimes you're sitting in that spot and you get splashed with water, and sometimes you don't.
It is such, for me, it is quintessential Disney. Also, because since that trip, I have obviously become addicted to the point where I host a podcast, right?
Huh.
And I have watched numerous different ride-throughs from all the different pirates. And to see the evolution or to watch the show, is it Behind the Ride? I can't remember. Behind the Attraction.
Yes, great show.
To watch them talk about why they're different and how they're different, and to think about the fact that Disney could cop out. They could drop the original into all of these parks, but they don't. And why they don't. And the evolution of this ride. It is, for me, the top of classic Disney, in my opinion.
Sure.
Now, it's not the top of my dark rides. It is, however, the top of classic Disney for me.
Sure.
I love this ride. I think that Johnny Depp and, Jack Sparrow being in it, it is what it is, right?
It doesn't bother me.
I understand why people would be like, come on, that's not part of this. For me, I never experienced it without him, so I don't get it.
It doesn't
I
change
don't understand
it a
that.
ton.
Yeah. It is remarkable how well this thing is held up.
Yeah.
And the storyline is there, and it's funny, and it's kitschy, and it's everything you want in a dark ride.
It's a little scary at times.
It's
in a
everything
good
you
way.
want in a dark ride, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I know we talked about it a lot, but you didn't mention smells, so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
So that's my number 2 is Pirates.
My number 1, I'm going to get right to it because there's so much of what you just said applies directly to the Haunted Mansion, and that's my number 1.
Yeah.
Again, if you're new to the show, I am a huge Haunted Mansion fan, always have been, love it. For a lot of people, this is not a surprise that is my number 1, but I want to kind of echo the things that you were saying. Is for me, Haunted Mansion is so quintessential Disney too, because it's kind of a hybrid of two things. And like you said, that Behind the Attraction show really goes through how they kind of created this ride. And I would recommend it to any listeners to check that out. And there's more than two, but there were two main people who created it. And one of them wanted it to be scary and one of them wanted it to be funny. And they kind of brought those two worlds together in a perfect mix. And the ride is definitely spooky at times, and even my kids who are a little older, they will go on it, but they think it's a little creepy too. But the ending being funny and coming in with we'll say the more upbeat Grim Grinning Ghost song, which I think is such a funny and incredible song. It goes from being scary, and the music is its exact same tune and the exact same notes, and then it picks up and you have this funny ending. That way it kind of makes you feel better. You meaning not just me as a person who's gone on it
the collective
umpteen times, but a kid who was maybe a little nervous when they were in one of the rooms or saw the Hatbox Ghost. Or
my daughter does not like the first half of that ride.
But then at the end, you're feeling good and you're dancing around and you're hearing Grim Grinning Ghosts and the disembodied heads are singing, and so that's a lot of the reasons why you like Pirates is a lot of the reasons why I like the Haunted Mansion. And if you think about it, they really are parallel in a lot of ways. They actually use some of the same animatronics. They reused both of them. Their characters have that similar look that because the same designers designed them. Okay, they're obviously both really dark and they have kind of a similar spooky feel at times, funny feel at times. I don't think enough people compare the two and say how really they're kind of an A ride and a B ride. Not B being bad. We'll say brother sister or something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean those animatronics, the facial features, everything about them, they're not meant to look realistic human.
Yeah.
Except for in Pirates,
Jack
Sparrow.
Sure.
But I agree with you. First of all, I didn't even mention the soundtrack because I knew you would talk about it. The soundtrack to Haunted Mansion is probably the best dark ride soundtrack there is.
Yeah, but Pirates of the Caribbean's right behind it though.
Right, but they're totally different, right?
Yeah.
You leave Haunted Mansion singing Grim Grinning Ghosts.
Yeah.
You leave Pirates humming that epic string orchestra bump bump ba-da-dum bump ba-da-dum bump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my son has or played a viola part in an orchestra thing that was the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Is it Hans Zimmer that wrote that? It's really good.
I think so. And so he was playing it and I was like, "Oh my God, buddy, I love this. You just play that all day." And it's just those two soundtracks are great. I do prefer the Haunted Mansion soundtrack because Grim Grinning Ghost is one of the greatest. I think the people who do the voices are amazing. I mean, you got Thurl Ravenscroft in there. I mean, you have classic,
and he's in both too.
People. Yeah. You have amazing.
It's crazy how similar those two rides are.
The parallels are astonishing.
Well, that's a show in and of itself.
Yeah, I love the ride. It is not for me as high as you. We already established that. Mm-hmm. Just like Pirates wasn't as high for you.
What is the highest for you? Is it what I think it is?
Yeah, the highest for me is Remy's. I mean, I think you have to give the nod for me to the most evolved dark ride that there is at Disney.
It is,
and
sure.
It is the most evolved dark ride.
And I would agree with that, and I would say you're right in that my number one is purely because it's something that's my favorite, as opposed to what you're saying right now is definitely the most evolved. Could it be the best? Sure. My favorite? No.
And that's fine. I totally understand. For me, what I was looking for because of who I am and my experience at Disney is the most evolved, right?
Yes.
You love the nostalgia. I get that. I totally get that. If we flip things and start talking about a different realm and not Disney realm, I might go that route too.
Yeah.
I just have to say that I think that Remy's is the best done. From the moment you walk into that queue till the moment you walk out, it is the best. It is a dark ride that's worth a long wait. This last time I looked out, we were in the France Pavilion. I've told the story recently, and for some reason the ride went down. I'm not sure if somebody dropped their hat or their sunglasses. That's a throwback to one of our listeners. Maybe on their honeymoon or something.
Maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. And everybody was very angry.
This is a good test to see if he's actually listening.
It is.
He brings this up to us.
Yeah,
or not.
It is.
Yeah.
So if that, I'm not sure why it was down.
Yeah.
Sometimes these trackless ride systems have issues like that.
Yeah, but that's also normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were in the France Pavilion. It came back up. We waited 15 minutes. It was almost a walk-on. The only wait we had was once we got into the room where Gusteau is talking to you, kind of.
Yeah.
And you're kind of basically almost in the load room at that point. We loaded up. We went. I will say, and I think it was just an error because it had just come back up. Or not an error, but an issue with just coming back up. When the cart goes underneath the cart, if that makes sense. When your car goes underneath the cart, where the wheels are normally spinning, which is part of the immersion, the wooden wheels were not spinning this time. But I think the whole ride does a great job shrinking you down, immersing you from moment A to the end, to moment Z. So
Excellent.
from the alpha to the omega. I love this ride. The one knock, if I can give it one, even though it's at the top, is that I would love to see some more animatronics other than, because it's a lot of projections. And I feel that in the future, this could suffer from scratched 3D glasses the way that Flight of Passage does.
Or just Disney park goers who have screen fatigue.
Yeah.
They're just tired of, okay, this is all kind of screens.
Yeah. Side note, I feel like when I watch those 3D things, when I get off, like I'm tired because my eyes are working overtime.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I do.
A little bit, sure.
Like when I watch like Muppet Vision 3D, I get out of there, I'm like, man, I want to take a nap. My eyes are tired.
I think we're just old.
I mean, well, there's that. Yeah. Yeah. We are old. We'll just leave it there. We're definitely old. Any honorable mentions you want to add?
Yeah, I had a couple. So Frozen was kind of the one that just got knocked off the list. Spaceship Earth is great.
I'll second Spaceship Earth.
I still like Little Mermaid. Didn't make my list, but I still like it. Small World is fun too. Some people call it cheesy. Again, it's a nostalgic and it's a classic.
I
ride.
love Small World.
I think Small World is still really great.
Earworm or not, I love it.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that I said I would mention, I want to go over it quick, is when I was looking kind of at all the different dark rides that exist and then going in and picking and choosing, the number of dark rides that I saw that were at Disneyland that are not at Walt Disney World was crazy. There were so many that were there but that are not here.
Mr. Toad's.
Mr. Toad's, Snow White's Scary Adventures, Pinocchio. Over at California Adventure, you have the Monsters Inc. ride.
I suspect we could potentially see that.
Yeah, and it's a goofier one because it's an overlay of another ride that used to be there. But I mean, there's so many more that are in Disneyland, and then. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up too. There's so many good things there. What'd you have? Anything I didn't mention or you want to elaborate on?
I can't think of anything you didn't mention because for me, those are my favorites.
Yeah, I don't love Peter Pan. I don't love Buzz Lightyear, but I think they all kind of count. And
Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
You think that's
the shooter?
You consider that a dark ride?
I don't know. I mean, you're on a track. You have the gun. You're kind of moving slowly through the dark. I don't think I consider it. So
yeah, I mean, maybe it is. I don't disagree wholly with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun one. It's been a while since we've done one where we kind of went back and forth and not debated, but at least presented differing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything to add this week?
No, just that I like to talk about magicmerch.art, which is the website that Nick and I will create fun and kind of goofy t-shirts that relate to Disney without, kind of breaking IP, just fun little quotes and some things that relate to, actually we do some cool group shirts.
Yep.
We have some shirts that we have designed that are in the silhouette of Figment, but aren't really Figment, so we're not really breaking any copyright. And inside of Figment silhouettes are all the different countries, and we wore them as a group one time. So I like to just mention that to people because I have a lot of people that will say to me on social media, "Hey, where'd you get those shirts from?"
Yeah,
well, we made them.
You can also get your Dizzless Pod merch there.
That's true.
Yeah. So if I could ask one thing, it's that please reach out on social media. Let us know whether you enjoyed this or not. Be sure to leave a comment, a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, no matter where you're listening. That would be great. But it's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow is just a list away.
Tune in next time, and we'll see you real soon.